Good afternoon to planet Earth and to the whole world that might be watching. Welcome to our Wild Earth here at Djuma Game Reserve. This is a lovely afternoon, fantastic afternoon in fact, to be bringing you live footage from the Sabi Sand here in South Africa, part of the Greater Kruger National Park, and an incredible afternoon because there's a thunderstorm. There's some big storm activity that's looking, there's my hand, that's looking northwest from where we are, so I'm guessing that that's happening over a town of Acorn Hook going up towards Hoedspruit and maybe the lower part of the escarpment. And you can't see me yet because it would be, oh now you can, because it's looking into the sun, but we're going to be heading on. And my name is Mark and Liam is on camera with me this afternoon. Oh, we just got to see a flower quickly. Any chance that I get, I stop for a flower. These are senna flowers. I think commonly known as a monkey pod, this particular senna. But I'm not too fond of common names sometimes because it gets far too confusing. Welcome to our drive this afternoon. This is our live broadcast from Djuma Game Reserve. We are very lucky to be able to drive it. Well, we're lucky to have this kind of technology. We're lucky to be able to broadcast a live game drive. Where are we? We're Friday afternoon for those of us here in South Africa, Friday morning if you're in the Western Hemisphere, the Americas, and that part of Europe. Most of Europe is about our timeline. Actually no, I suppose even the UK is only about 2 hours behind, so it's mostly the US, Canada, Alaska going in the north and then all the way down through to Chile in the south, South Americas, waking up to us. We have a lot of viewers that come from the Eastern Hemisphere all the way up to Fiji and hopefully Japan. We used to have some Japanese viewers. I hope there are some of you out in Japan, maybe China. Fiji. I know there's someone in Fiji. Got some wonderful area. And it's probably night time for you over there, so good evening to you. You're on your Friday night. Hope you can enjoy your weekend. But I have to tell you something, that this is not only just bringing you live footage from the bush. Between Scott and Brent and myself, the three of us, we're able to interact with you. We're able to bring you a completely unique and once-off opportunity. Because there's no one else that does it. Oh, there's a squirrel. Wait, got to stop. See, these things happen all the time. We're in nature. There's a squirrel that's standing on the, is looking over into the grasses. What up, squirrel? Dove is nonplussed. There's a dove just in front of it. Completely nonplussed. Or just ignorant of the fact that there's something stalking it right now. The squirrel. Rather typical behavior. It is a tree squirrel, and being on the ground, if it has to run anywhere between two trees, it's got to know where it's going. But there have been some alarm calls, so we're not going to go very far. I did hear another squirrel alarming. I'll keep that in mind as I talk to you, because I'm talking to a lot of the new viewers who are with us. I know there are a lot of old viewers, and a lot of what I'm saying is maybe reiterating and reminding and sometimes repeating. But the wonderful thing about what we do is that we can talk to each other. I know it's not quite like a telephone call, but you see there's Nikki in final control. There's a pretty bird here too. And you see that, oh, there it goes. For that termite mound. gorgeous little green. It's got yellow and orange, and it's got like blue eyeliner and a black mascara stripe through. There's an even prettier bird behind us that's just been cackling. Okay, I want an answer from those of us who are viewing, who are birders or even aspiring or just getting interested in birds. I'll show you some really pretty ones here in Africa. That one, we'll wait. We'll see if I can find this one that was cackling up. There's another one right here to the right. Yeah. So move slowly because I don't want it to fly. Did it fly?
Yeah, but it's near behind there.
Oh, it was like 10 feet away, and it was in bright sunshine. The cackling actually alludes to their name in one of the native languages, one of our local languages, Zulu. Oh, there they go. It's okay, we're going to follow them because I've been asked actually by one of our viewers to find this bird some time ago, and now that we have the chance, we ought to be able to. Even from a distance at first, and they get used to us maybe. But what I was saying was that it's interactive, so you can email us, you can even send a tweet if you want to ask a question, and Nikki, who's in final control, will send me the question or the comment or query, whatever it may be, over the radio. So it's kind of like we're talking to each other, albeit through a third party. So this is an adventure through probably one of Africa's biggest national parks. And I know it might be tame right now because we're following a few birds. Mind the buffalo thorn. It's not too bad. Terminalia. But things can get a little bit rough out here. We are in one of Africa's biggest national parks, as I mentioned. This is also an untamed park. There are no fences, there are no boundaries. Animals have millions and millions of acres of natural bushveld to move in. So we are not seeing animals that have been kept in captivity. We're not seeing animals that are tamed in any way. This is live, wild earth. So on Twitter we are #SafariLive. If you want to send something, you want to send a tweet. Okay, we're in this marula, now they're gone. It's the difficult thing about trying, there they go, into the marula ahead of us. We might be able to get a view of them in this marula. There's a colony that upload. Birds, unfortunately, once you aim at them, once you put your eye on them and you start following them around, they start getting a bit self-conscious. They think you're actually chasing them. They think, not chasing, but they probably think we're trying to hunt them. Not that anything does, because being wood hoopers, they're not very palatable as birds go for bird eating predators. I know it's hard, it's just not going to work, because as soon as we move, they move, and all we can get is sort of the odd long distance view, that lovely long tail. You can't quite get to see the red beak and the iridescent changes of colours from the top of the head down over the back, purples and greens and blues that will turn any non-birder into a birder. Right, there's a good chance of seeing one. They've got this very long decurved beak. A decurved beak means it curves downwards, and with this very long beak they probe behind the bark of trees. They've suddenly gone in a full circle. They're actually going back to where we first saw them, so they're teasing me right now. Anyways, we're gonna got some answers. See, not only can you ask me questions, I can ask you questions too. So at the end of the drive, you write an exam. And we see. Okay. Aha. So I guess we got two winners here on that little bird that we saw on this little branch. There's a little bird on a little branch, and it's known as a little bee-eater. I know it sounds like a very simple name, because the bee-eaters are a family of birds that are diurnal aerial hunters, and while some of them have quite exotic names, like the carmine bee-eater, or rather very descriptive names like the white-fronted bee-eater, or named after a very particular bird, and they're very limited in their distribution, and a bird worth noting is the Boehm's bee-eater. Of course, we're not going to find one of them, but this one, quite simply, is the little bee-eater, and it was Heather in the UK, not Alaska. Heather in the UK. They've got on email. Who was it on Twitter? Was I talk too much? I forget. Donna. Sorry, Donna. How could I forget? The birds we are trying to follow were green woodhoppoos, also known as the red-billed woodhoopoo, and they are pretty amazing birds. So I must tell you what we saw this morning, because I'm sure there's some of you who were asleep when we were on drive this morning, or were at work, or weren't able to watch, or I don't know, whatever your excuse was. There's no excuse for not watching Wild Earth, quite frankly. But I know sometimes I guess we can let it go if you're at work. But we had an amazing encounter with a pride of lion that we don't see very often. They're known as the Tsalalas. The Tsalala breakaway pride. 13 cats. We had 13 cats in our view. Consists of 9 adults. This morning I forgot all the breakdown because I hadn't seen them for so long, and I hadn't been here, and I had to get back into drive because I've been away. So it's great to be back, by the way, and thank you for all the messages over the last week that I haven't been able to reply to. Hello buffalo. Let's go see some buffalo at the dam. I'm not going to spend too much time with them. I want to go to Buffelshoek Dam. I want to explore a little bit around Djuma. We're at Djuma Game Reserve right now. Oh, hello Franklin. Wait for them to cross the road. And then maybe we're going to go and see if we can catch up with that Tsalala Pride lion from this morning, because they were what we call flat cats. I mean, they killed a kudu last night, or early this morning. I'm guessing early this morning. And for the guests that were staying at Arathusa Safari Lodge, it must have been quite exciting, because, well, I guess it could have been somewhat terrifying too, because right close to the lodge at the dam, which is almost like this is Murray Dam, by the way, where we are now. And this is right in front of monkeys. We got to see some monkeys. Very similar circumstances right in front of Boyatella Lodge here at Djuma. But right now only buffalo. But you can imagine what would happen if you're sleeping in the lodge overlooking the dam, like one of those rooms up there, and a lion come along and they kill something right below your room. It can be the noise. 13 lion that were probably, well, I don't get too graphic. But it was a kudu bull that they killed, and it was a sub-adult kudu bull. Judging by the size of his horns, it was probably about a 4 or 5 year old kudu bull. So he was a fair size, but certainly no match, despite his horns, for 13 cats. 13 cats, which consist of 4 adult females and a kindergarten. No, not quite a kindergarten, but a high school of sub-adults. 9 youngsters that are growing and are no doubt hungry from time to time. A bunch of males amongst them. Those males are probably going to turn into a coalition one day. So we're at Gowrie Dam. Later on we're going to try and get to Arathusa. There's not really much point in going there right now, I have to be honest. It's quite a warm afternoon. Those cats are not going to be moving much with full tummies. They've got fairly full tummies from the kudu they ate last night. Let's just look at 2 things quickly. The Heimerkorp that's looking a little bit, I don't know, why aren't you frogging, dude? Believe it or not, this is a member of the stork family. But without further ado, I want to see if we can just catch those 2 young monkeys having a game before they leave the dam wall, because their mother has just moved off. Sorry, Liam. Oh, thought I was going to grab Mom's tail. Let's see if we can get close to this little troop of vervet monkeys. These are vervet monkeys, the only species of monkey we have here. Canaries. Canaries just flown into this buffalo thorn. See if we can get anyone, if we can get a close enough look without it flying. It was a go-away bird that flew past it. Any chance of... Okay, diagnostic for this canary will be it's got a yellow top to the head and then like a dark brown eye line through the eye. There's another one just a little bit lower to the right, about 3 o'clock to that buffalo thorn. Another 2 there. Let's try and sneak up on them. Well, they're actually called siskins now. They used to be called canaries. Of course, it doesn't change the fact that they are canaries. Now you can see a little bit of yellow in the one on the left. And that's not Veer moving the camera, it's just the branch shaking in the wind. It's quite a wind that's starting to pick up. Right, where did the primates go? Be nice to see if we can find a little patch of them. They do get a little bit self-conscious. Ah, okay. Not too in this knob thorn. Now the adults can be a little bit indifferent, but there are youngsters that were born this summer. It would make them about 4 to 5 months old now. A bit inquisitive, they've still got a lot to learn. But it looks like we're not enough of a curiosity this afternoon. Not everything is about blood and gore and killing and eating, and there's a lot of what we see that is very heartwarming and very touching. And one of the most spiritual and heartwarming and touching things that we could possibly find would be, to me, the king, to me, the true rulers of the bushveld. Need I say more? The elephants. Look at the starling. Only every now and then you just get the right light. Very long tail. We do have several starlings here, but this particular one's quite a large starling. There's a pretty long tail, but you can notice it's got a very dark eye, and there is only one starling with that combination. As glorious and glistening as it is. The Burchell's starling. Catching something. So, the word of the day is elephants. While we have sunshine and, sorry starling, we'll see you later, dude. And while there is sunshine and the cats are probably sleeping, we are going to go on an adventure to see if we can find things like giraffe and impala and elephants and flowers, whatever you want to look at. Because it's not the time of day to look at cats, because they're going to be flat, they're going to be sleeping. We'll go and visit with them a little bit later, see if we can get there a bit later. Because I don't think they're going to move very far. I wonder, since none of us were really in FC much today, we were all quite busy, whether it was studying the inside of our eyelids, yours truly, or cleaning a storeroom, Scotty D, or VM was busy with software stuff and no archive stuff, and okay, well, whatever. We've all been doing our own thing. Sorry, I just got distracted because this has got to be one of the most beautiful trees on the whole property of Djuma. How high would you say that is? I'd say probably about 75 feet, maybe more.
20 meters.
20 meters. We'll wait till a giraffe stands under it and then we'll be able to see. Only when you get an animal next to it, like an elephant that's dwarfed by it, that it comes into full perspective. But that is called a jackalberry. Belongs to the family Ebonaceae. As I said, word of the day is elephants. And I want to see if I can find some signs of them. There was a big herd of ellies here at Gari Dam yesterday, probably around the time pleasant break. But I did miss you all. I promise, I missed you all you all. let's recap. So, tweets can be sent to #SafariLive. And if you would like to send an email, you can send an email to questions@WildEarthTV. My email address. Nikki can read them out to me over the radio. So I've got a little earpiece. The earpiece also tells me about other vehicles that are driving around the area, because we share information about where animals are, and because we are trying to be as sensitive as possible, we don't allow too many vehicles to crowd animals. There are some areas in even here, oh gosh, at home it's bad, really calm. Because of the radio and there's just not good. People don't have a quality experience. Ideally, good animals, we have to observe them doing anything else, to be able to try and see. But especially animals that come to the spur fowl. While we're at it, I've actually got two types of spur fowl. There's this one, which is very distinct, has that orange to red beak and orange feet, very pretty colors. It's the only one in this area that has such a combination. And if we go from that particular bird to these two that are on my right hand side, probably just over my hat, very different. The only one of its family that actually has a tail that kind of sticks up like a chicken. The bush chicken. But we don't eat them really. They have too many other things that eat them. We don't want to be afraid. So these are called crested francolin. Sorry children, coming through. The other one was a Natal spur fowl, also francolin spur fowl kind of thing. Did you have any braking signal there? Okay, not copying it very well. I think that should be more vertical, but I don't think it's that. I think it's antenna back home. Got footprints that are like this big, maybe 3 feet, 2 feet. I mean, not 2 feet as in human feet, I mean 2 feet as in 24 inches or more. sadly not very fresh tracks. We rely a lot on the tracks on the road because with these dust roads, the dry it's getting, we're going into the dry season now. We're in the southern hemisphere, and so we're going into winter. But we're at an altitude and a location on the planet that has a winter, or rather a summer rainfall, winter dry season. It's leopard dung. That was leopard scat on the road, by the way. And with this dry season approaching, the roads are starting to get very dusty as the vehicles and the animals and everything that moves on them starts churning up the sand that's been compacted over the wet season. So we depend quite heavily on tracks to tell us where animals have been, where they're going, when they've been there. It's very easy to... There's a woodpecker. I don't know if we're going to get to see this woodpecker because they're very shy. Oh no, it's flown away. It's flying. No, that's a paradise flycatcher that just flew out of the same tree. Oh, golly gosh, just not able to get it, flew away. I hope to catch some of these birds on camera one day, but unfortunately the birds are not as accustomed to the vehicle as the animals are. It's a big thing and they do fly away from it. But I was saying earlier that with the consistency of behavior out of the vehicles that drive around as part of the national park, or the Sabi Sand Game Reserve rather, which is part of the Greater Kruger National Park, there are rules about how the vehicles behave, how many vehicles are allowed to be present with an animal, and so the animals develop this, I suppose, acclimatization, a kind of a habituation, for want of a better word, that they carry on doing their own thing. And for us, it allows us to watch them engaging in their own natural behavior, as opposed to being in their presence and them merely running away or standing and glaring at us because we're this strange entity in their midst. Because I've experienced that in other parts of Africa, and it's incredible how people react. People that have been here in Kruger and have experienced animals here in Kruger that are somewhat indifferent to the presence of vehicles, as opposed to places in East Africa where, when I got there, animals were so shy that they ran away at the slightest sight. As soon as they saw vehicles, in fact, probably 90% of them ran away before the vehicle even got there. And the reaction of different people. Well, we're at Buffelshoek Dam. The heron has just been shouting. We've heard a heron. Here's a heron. Oh, off it goes. Sorry, heron. It's just going to land on the other side of the dam, I think. And there I can just see the wake of the hippo. And another hippo popping its head. Oh, get a little bit more forward. I'm here to look at a crocodile. I'm here in search of a reptile. An ancient reptile. I think there's a little bit of something going on with these hippo. I'm looking at the water's edge and there have been waves in this dam today. So there's been a lot of splashing. You can hear that hippo growling. Not at us. I think there's a conflict going on. I think. Yes. These low rumbles. You know, hippo probably communicate more underwater than they do above water, mostly because sound travels so well underwater. And the way these two hippo are behaving, I'm thinking that maybe this is some conflict. Yep, there we go. The water's boiling. Well, who knows? Maybe it's not conflict. Maybe it's something more positive. Procreation. I haven't been able to see the other one too well. I think this is definitely a bull that's popping his head up above the water and in this low growl. Oh, I see a crocodile. But you can't see it yet because it's hidden for you. Now, the reason why I'm here primarily for this crocodile, I was hoping that there were ellies here. I was hoping that maybe this might cause some adjustments on the camera, might require VM to do some things, but I wanted to sneak. Can you see him down here, VM? Gwenya. Oh yeah. And I think from this angle we can see pretty much the whole damn waterhole, the whole waterhole. We call them dams, by the way. This is not cussing, cursing. Hippos are getting active. What do we look at? Crocodile or two hippos facing each other? That's why I said there's been waves, and you can see some of the waves that are now emanating from this little bubbling water that's just occurred. I'm looking at the edge of the dam and I'm seeing that there's water splashed up at least a foot and a half away from the edge of the water, and it would take a lot of things to do that. Go. I think this is a bit of a fight about to happen. Or not. Unfortunately, I'm very, very rusty on my hippo dialect at the moment. I'm not too sure what the one, it's the one on the left, by the way, that is doing this low communicative call. But so far they're being quite amicable. And the one on the left, I thought he might have looked a little bit bigger. But it's hard to tell. There's some very serious interaction going on. Crocodile is submerged. I think it was Valerie in Pennsylvania was asking about scat and dung, the definition of scat and dung. If I can interrupt this hippo interaction. I think, yes, Valerie, we tend to use scat rather than dung. Well, I've used dung for carnivores as much as I've used it maybe for herbivores, but I think the more internationally understood nomenclature or word would be scat for the carnivores, the predators, versus dung for the herbivores. I don't know, the crocodile must have just done something. It was submerged for a bit, and now there's just suddenly a lot of bubbles around the crocodile, so it must have either tried to catch a fish. And the reason why we're here is because there's debate as to whether this is the same crocodile that was here a little while ago, the big croc that was here earlier, before I went on leave, whether it's another one. Now we're right on the sort of western edge of Buffelshoek Dam. The crocodile that used to be mostly stuck around that end, but it's not to say it's not going to utilize the whole waterhole. But it's not going to be able to do us any good just looking at what little we can see of the crocodile until it maybe climbs out of the water. So let's see what happens with the hippo. We're going to sit here a little while and see what transpires. And maybe something will come down to drink. Beer, there's a feather floating next to that crocodile. Now we had an experience once, so I think it's not going to do anything. A leaf or a feather. We had a wonderful experience with a crocodile in Thorny Bush when there was a feather floating on the pond. That is a feather. And a bored crocodile. Sorry to drag you away from the hippo. Yeah, I think this is a confrontation more than an amorous meeting. What did you say, Scott? Don't look at me, hippo. I'm not coming into your water. I'm not part of this. Animal behavior is a really amazing thing because you can never really learn everything there is to know about it, because no animal runs on such a clockwork or such a specific behavioral pattern that when you have interaction, when you have individuals that are behaving whatever they're doing rather than sleeping, there's a chance to watch and observe, and there's a chance to learn something. So for the time being, and I don't know how long we'll stay, but we're going to out here for a few minutes. Something might happen. Question from Nikki. Nikki wondering why they would be fighting. Would it be territory? Well, as yet I can't really call it a fight. At the moment it seems to be a disagreement, and whether there's a challenge from the one that's just poking his nose out and growling, or whether it's submissive. Have to be honest, I don't know. But at the moment it just seems a little bit of a confrontation, and not too sure what is going to transpire. One of the reasons for this might be that we're going into the dry season. We've had very, very little rain. We've got water holes and dams that are drying up and getting smaller and smaller by the day. And there are very, very few that, there we go, there's a little bit of a challenging posture by the bull on the left now. He lifted his head and sort of arched his neck. That is definitely a dominance and challenging posture. So what could be transpiring here is that somewhere along the line, dams are drying up. And space is getting limited. Now sometimes there are anywhere up to even 15-20 hippos in this dam. So there are a number of other dams, a number of other water bodies. If you don't know, our concept of a dam, by the way, is something that is a sort of a man-made structure, a drainage line that has an earth wall built across it so that it retains the water that becomes runoff in the wet season. And if they're deep enough like this one, they can retain water right throughout the dry season. But sometimes some of them start drying up, especially because we haven't had very good rain this year. In fact, it's been quite sad. How early things are starting to dry up. And so possibly we've got a bull that is seeking new wintering grounds, new area to spend his dry season in, and has brought him here where a bull already has claimed territory and is marking this as his waterhole, I guess. And it could well be that being matching sizes, being unwilling to concede defeat from the challenger or unwilling to reach a compromise, they are squaring off, but neither one of them wants to really be the one to initiate much of a charge and an assault. Who wants to be injured? It's hard enough finding grazing. Now you've got to remember, hippo are grazers. They only eat grass. Not much in the way of anything else, and grass is starting to wear pretty thin at the moment. So we don't only have their water resource starting to dry up and starting to get smaller, we've got a situation where their grazing is starting to get smaller and smaller. Could be that hippo just found himself in this waterhole today, and now that sleeping time is over, it's time to wake up. Maybe it's time to defend your territory, who knows. But we could be here all for the rest of the day, and this is all they will do, and it might turn out to be something entirely innocuous. it's interesting behavior. It's not something we see very often. It's almost like calm is restored. And he's still grumbling, that old man. Crocodile might. I was telling you about the crocodile, yes. See, we had this crocodile that appeared here, out of the blue. And what made it so much more remarkable is that it was sort of this dry time. Sometimes when it's raining and the drainage lines, these dry riverbeds, when they're flowing, you can expect crocodiles to start moving upstream, especially because you get fish that move upstream, catfish and bream, what we call tilapia. They start moving upstream, and you often have crocodiles and other things following these fish that are moving upstream, trying to find. To have one come here in the dry season is also probably testament to the fact that there are dams drying up and that it was seeking more permanent water for the dry season. But having said that, while I was on leave this past week, evidently there were tracks of another crocodile coming this way, and the debate is whether this is in fact the same crocodile. My immediate thought is considerably smaller. So what I want to do, I want to sneak around the other side of the dam and see if we can see if the bigger one is there. We might not get any conclusions about this whole thing, because if the other crocodile isn't there, then it still doesn't answer the question whether it's the same one or not. We would need to see it out of the water to have a better idea, but I'm looking at it from here. The one that was here, that was a bigger crocodile, I think. So let's go around the other side. We can monitor what the hippo are doing from there, and at the same time, I don't know, they just don't seem to be progressing much in their dispute. Okay. Of course, when we're below the dam wall, we might very easily hear all the commotion. Okay, go. Hello, Joe. Joe's in Wales. Nice to hear from you, Joe. Bye bye, crocodile. Stay there. Joe in Wales wants to know if there's any threat to the hippos from the crocodile. Under the circumstances, I don't think so, Joe. Well, there's been a lot of buffalo here. A lot of buffalo tracks. Like a little herd. I've lived on some pretty major rivers in Africa, and some of the best crocodile and hippo territories you can get, from the Okavango Delta in Botswana, the Zambezi River in Zimbabwe and Zambia, to the Rufiji River, the Tana River up in Kenya. So I've lived with a lot of boats and a lot of crocodiles, and I think the mere fact that they coexisted for so long means that they pretty much get along. They go along to get along. They're on the same territory. There isn't much in the way of competition for the crocodile, short of a few million years of evolution, for something to become an apex predator in the rivers and lakes. And well, the hippo is a herbivore, and it's not in competition with the crocodiles. And you would think that being a carnivore, the crocodiles might perhaps be a threat to the hippos, and they can be to the youngsters. But I think the bulk of the hippos, and what was that? Radio call. Excuse me a sec, folks. Go ahead, Lex. Negative, up at Biffles Dam, but so far nothing. Did anything happen with those ingwem ponds this morning? Okay, copied. Because there were, I noticed there were tracks of two ingwe that came down Philemon's cut line, and then the one that headed up to quarantine, and then there was that other ingwe that crossed quarantine from the west. But I didn't manage to follow up. I went over to Arakuza. Okay, copied. Yes, so those two that you saw was the same two that were on Philemon's cut line. Yeah, that's affirmative. There's that new track that cuts over the middle of quarantine west to east. There was a young male that walked that way. Yeah, affirmative. Okay, copied. A lopsided buffalo. No crocodile yet. But you might have to wait there. No, that's not a crocodile, it's a piece of wood. I think. Hard to tell. Sometimes. No, it's just a piece of wood. Well, I'm not seeing any other crocodile. Of course, it would be difficult without seeing tracks. And we'll have to try and catch this crocodile early in the morning when it comes out to sun itself to see if we can see if it's about the same. It would have to be lying somewhere along the edge of the dam, just across from us over here, where this piece of wood is, because we had the crocodile sleeping here, right where those dead pieces of wood were, and we'd be able to measure more or less the size of the two crocs. There's still a little bit of grumbling from the hippos. Just talking to one of the other guides, Lex, about leopard tracks this morning. Interesting to note that the leopard tracks that I found at the end of drive this morning were the same two that they were following up Gari Cutline, but there was still the discrepancy of one male leopard's tracks that don't seem to have been resolved. Oops, sorry. So, a lone one-horned buffalo. I think we've seen this boy at Gari Dam as well, perhaps. Has crocodile marks. The crocodile's been out here in the sand, just off to my right. And you can see how this little bit of sand has been moved as the croc probably came out and then turned around to face the water. And this is probably the afternoon sun. So, I think we ought to continue our journey this afternoon. About buffalo. I found an nice spot of shade chewing the cud. So I think there's still a couple of leopards around. Sounds like a male and a female that might be mating, and that could be Karula. Or could be Karula, one of the boys. Go ahead, Nikki. Kurt, morning to you, because Kurt's in Michigan. I'm guessing it's morning in Michigan. Morning to you, Kurt. Interesting question about the range of hippo bulls. How far will they range in search of, I suppose, food and mates? Well, it's not so much in search of female or cows, rather, because they will be in the water bodies that they visit, and it becomes more a question of food for hippos, really, in that they might have their territories in the water, but their home range, you see, we differentiate between their territory and a home range. It's semantics, really, but it's a home range is something, an area that they will cover in their daily needs, as opposed to a territory that they will vehemently defend against other bulls and to protect or to attract females, cows and calves, and procreate. So seasonally it differs quite greatly, Kurt, because in the summer months the greenery that they have, well, there are a couple of things. First of all, they can spread out more, because a lot of these water holes, even if they're temporary water holes, can house a hippo during the day. It can climb into a mud wallow and sleep for the day and then carry on grazing that night, because they only eat grass, as I mentioned, but they're also predominantly nocturnal, so most of them only want to be out at night, and during the day they want to be sleeping in the water, protected from the sun and the dry heat. So it becomes a matter of finding food, and obviously the summertime with the green grasses, it's far less ground that they need to cover in the summer months than it is in the dry season. And I think hippo are known to walk up to even maybe 20 miles in a night, 15 to 20 miles to cover enough ground, depending on where it is, of course. You can't ask me a question like that without eliciting a depends response, because what hippo will do here in the Sabi Sands, in fact, even within the Sabi Sands it would be different, because hippos here in the northern Sabi Sands don't have the access to the Sand River or the Sabi River even further south, where there's more permanent water, there's greener, it retains its greenery a little bit longer. So every habitat, every different area within Africa has a different dynamic. I mean, I've seen parts of the lower Zambezi Valley on the Zambezi River where you have a very, very short grassland area between the river and the mountains, the hill country. It's not hill, it's rocky country, and it's not conducive to grasses, so it's not really a place that the hippos are even going to venture into. And even in the middle of the day, you find in the dry season, even in the wet season, funnily enough, hippos trying to take advantage as much time as they can, and they can't go very far. They can utilize a certain section of river because of territoriality, and it's literally eating the grasses while they're growing just to get enough grasses. So where one answer could work for this particular part of Africa, it's not going to work for others. Here there are a lot of man-made dams, and a lot of them are drying up. A lot of them are getting probably too shallow for hippo to wallow in during the day. They've got to try and remain as submerged as possible. They do have a rather sensitive skin. They can burn pretty easily, even though they do kind of produce their own sunblock. They sweat this pinkish liquid that does help protect them, does help moisturize and protect them. But you'll find that now there's going to probably be more hippo movement, and there's more hippo tension. And we saw hippo tension this morning. We were with the lion in Arathusa, and we actually had to turn around so we could see some pretty intense hippo activity. Same kind of thing, probably a bull moving in because his pond is dried up and he's got to find a more permanent spot for winter. It looks like there's a big Nyala bull just gone behind the bush. I just saw a big black rump. There he is. Go. Well, very interesting question from Ohio. Hello, Sam. Sorry, that was a Nyala bull. Nyala is medium-sized antelope, yeah. Family of the kudu and the bushbuck. That was a big bull, actually. Unfortunately, it's got into some very, very thick bush willow. There's a family. He's following a family. There's a younger bull. I can just see it. There's a younger bull and some females just further on. There's an adult female. It looks quite round, actually. It's got a couple of... There's a younger female just in front of her, and then some even younger individuals. Sam, I'll get to your question shortly. Sam was asking about the waterholes here in the Sabi Sand, but just for the time being, I want to show you this because there's a bull. Quite remarkable in that it's one of the only antelope that we have here, and what he's doing is actually probably testing her scent, testing to see how ready she is. And that means that the bull that's behind him, now we can see he's raising that dorsal crest, the white hair along his back, and I think he's doing that to signal to the other bull that that there could be a challenge here. The other bull is approaching slowly. Now they're coming up to this road, and we might be able to see them as they get to this road. Yeah, babies have already crossed the road and they're running away. So if we stop here, we might get to see the adult females coming across with that bull. I don't want to go parallel to them because I'm going to block their path to the youngsters. But they are going to come across the road any minute now. Especially because the youngsters have run off ahead. Now, Sam was asking what water resources were there here in the Sabi Sand before all the dams were built. That's a very good question. Before the dams were built, there would have been a lot of natural wallows, and we can actually see some of them, some of the natural pans and wallows that do fill up in the summer months. But yes, they wouldn't have held water much into the wet season. Some of the rivers, the dry riverbeds, would have had bends in them that maybe held pools of water, and we do have one that we know at Philemon's Dip, which is a nice little pool that gets to stay for quite some time. But you see, a long time ago, before this land was perhaps subdivided, before it was established as a private reserve, a lot of these animals in the dry season would have probably moved. I won't say migrated, but in terms of seasonal movement, they would have moved down to the rivers, the more permanent rivers. Not far to the west of us, we have the Manyaleti River. Not far to the north of us, we have the Timbavati River, going up to the Olifants River, and to the south we have the Sand River and the Sabi River. So quite likely, before humans came around, we talk about a couple of 100 years ago, before the dynamics changed with human presence, these animals would have been able to seasonally move around to all these different water sources that would have been rivers. Unfortunately though, when humans came along, everything that we have in our lives had to come along with us, farming, agriculture and everything else. And it was through the foresight of some of our forefathers that they developed the Kruger National Park. And they They had no idea about animal movement, they had no idea about the ecology, they had no idea about what was required to create a national park, but at least there was this foresight that we need to preserve, we need to conserve the natural environment. We can't go around just cutting it all down for our own benefit. And so late in the 20th century the Kruger National Park was born, and I'm just looking up the road. The nyalas are coming out right now, but they're a little bit further up than I expected, probably because I'm talking. There's one of the mamas, one of the females, and here comes another young female, gorgeous, beautiful light on her. Probably two mothers from the two lambs I saw running across the road. I'm just going to move a little bit forward and see if we're going to be able to watch the rams come across. Well, actually they're called bulls. Females are called ewes and lambs. There he is. This is the bull that has got first dibs. And believe it or not, I think this other bull that we first saw, I think he's a bigger bull. I think he's biding his time. He's going to be coming across the road shortly. Oh, looks like a fire down there. Yep, looks like fires to the southeast. One of the only antelope that has such a marked difference between male and female in terms of coloration and appearance, physiology. Okay, we'll stop here. Here he comes. Come along, Mr. Bull. I'll wait for you to cross. Even if it isn't a zebra crossing, it's called a nyala crossing. I mean, he's definitely bigger than the other bull. So I think he's letting the other bull think that he can get in there first. If we look up the road, by the way, and into the distance, there's smoke, and there's smoke. That white cloud that's forming is actually the moisture that's condensing in the atmosphere from a fire that looks like it's pretty fierce, just judging by the speed that it's moving. Way down in the southeast, or further east, probably in Kruger. Now, I think while I'm answering this question, let me show you something here, Sam. Let me bring out a map. This is a map of the Sabi Sand that I found recently. I haven't seen it before myself, but it is quite an amazing map. But now, what we have all the way from this dark green down the bottom, this is the Kruger National Park that comes along the south of the Sabi Sand, all the way along the east. I need to get out of the shade of this map. I wish I had it smaller, but hopefully you can follow me, wind and all. The eastern side of the Sabi Sand is all Kruger National Park. There's a little bit in the north that is Manyaleti. Now, within the Sabi Sand, a long time ago, which was on the edge of this great reserve called the Kruger National Park, and the Kruger National Park was established, the land on the outside of Kruger National Park wasn't really considered wildlife area, so it was sold off by the government, was partitioned and sold off by the government with the intention that people would try farming or cattle or some form of resource management But luckily, very luckily, a lot of the people who bought land, although there were some cattle farmers, a lot of the people that bought the land wanted to retain it in its natural state. But it was still early days in conservation. It was still early days in our awareness and our understanding of nature, and people still had this need to fence off their property. I bought this piece of land, so I must put a fence around it, and I must protect anything that's in it and stop other people from coming into it. And it was only in around the mid-50s, I think it was 1956 if I'm not mistaken. I might even have it on this map, some details. But I think it was about 1956, just before the 60s, that a lot of these landowners that bought this land outside of Kruger, that decided that they would all get together to create one larger conservation area. Now, initially, when this land was parceled off, whatever animals existed on these little parcels of land needed water. They had no longer the ability to move to dry season grounds that they might have done in the past. So there was a little bit of a misunderstanding, no, a lack of understanding, not a misunderstanding, but a lack of understanding of ecology. And through that it was necessary to build all of these dams, because each property had to then provide water for their animals, go through the dry season. But then again, what happened was, in the 50s and 60s, when this became a private game reserve, it became separate from Kruger. It was still self-contained, and it still didn't allow animals the seasonal movement that maybe they had enjoyed for millions of years. And so in those days it was necessary for landowners to provide water for the animals through the dry season. I know that there have even been droughts when it has been necessary to provide things like lucerne. But anyways, it's a great question about what the animals did, and the most important thing is that a lot of the original land that animals used to move in has now been restored, and that's probably one of the reasons why we see so much seasonal movement with animals now. We don't have animals that are so confined to an area that we just keep seeing the same animals over and over again, because the elephants can move deep into Kruger, they can move way north up into the Timbavati and up to the Olifants River, or way down south to the Sabi River. I think initially, before the Kruger National Park was established, because if you look at the escarpment, I need to get a smaller map, it's too big to have out like that, but the Kruger National Park is a very long north-south national park that almost runs parallel to the mountains, and maybe you can understand why it was decided to create that park so many years ago, over a century and a half, well, a century and a bit ago. Oh, this is a big fire. Look how big, I mean, 2 minutes ago these clouds were half the size, and there's so much moisture, there's so much greenery burning in this fire that the steam is condensing to form these clouds. And I'm starting to smell the fire now. I think maybe we should find out where that fire is, because that's got to be just inside Kruger. Elephants north of us on the radio. I can't go there. So to conclude the story about water, we've had some serious floods over the last few years, especially starting 2012 and again in 2013, when a lot of these dams were broken and they were washed away. And one of the things about becoming part of the greater Kruger National Park is that there is now a need for universal management rather than individual pockets of management of the ecology. And so it's now the Kruger Park's responsibility to decide whether a lot of these dams that have broken or that do exist, whether they can be maintained. Because wherever you put water, if you create a dam, you're going to create a habitat for animals, whether there's food there or not. And invariably, when the requirement for water overrules the requirement for food, so they will denude an area as long as they have water. And so it's necessary for some of these dams to never be rebuilt, for them to go dry and not be pumped, so that animals do move away and they do release the pressure that they apply to an area when there is water there, so that plants and things can grow back again. I'm a little concerned about this fire. Go ahead, Nikki. Got a question. Busted feather, by the way, Korhan. So fly swish. See, I don't have any flies now because I picked up the feather. Louise in Johannesburg, what could have caused the fire? Well, we can rule out lightning. I think we can rule that one out. So that leaves only one option: human negligence. A cigarette butt out of a car. And we're talking about Kruger here. I mean, that's far enough away that it's off of the Sabi Sand. It looks like it could be into Kruger, or even down as far south as Londolozi, Mala. It's a pretty big fire. Are you picking up? Can you sort of? I don't know if that's. But you can see that there's really it's smoke underneath this cloud rather than cloud. We don't get brown cloud. And because there's still a lot of greenery, there's a lot of steam that condenses into those lovely white fluffy heads at the top. I don't even know who I could call right now. I suppose maybe Scott. Now that could be quite devastating. If a fire were to come through here now, we do have air moving from that direction. The moment I can still feel cool air, and it looks like it's far enough away, but it's a really bad time of the year for a big fire, which means that the wind erosion and the soil erosion that is going to result, not to mention all the seed base that has been produced over this meager summer that we've had, that seed base is going to be burnt. Animals do fine in the fire. No need to get alarmed about animals. They pick up the scent, they move away. I'm sure that there are things that succumb to it. I know that there are scavengers that will walk through the flames, through the burning ash, to find insects and small reptiles and things that can't get away. There are also, I've seen zebra moving through the ash to try and get to the first green grasses that they can, having had the dry grasses burnt away. Pardon? No, those are the if those are the leopard tracks. So fire, I would imagine, maybe started by human error. We're going into Torchwood.
I know. We're coming into our property.
Let me go and have a look at that quickly. Hang on with that question. Oops. Okay. I can smell it now. I can actually smell the fire. I just want to go and look down the back of the road quickly. Good one on finding the tracks, but unfortunately they were hyena tracks. I'm sorry. But nice finding them. Excuse me a moment while I just converse over the radio. I'd like to find out something. Any station know anything about this fire in the east and the southeast? Okay, copy. It looks pretty big. You think it can jump? Okay, copy. Do you know if Candace knows about it? Okay, copy. You're a bit late in the day to be burning. I'll get a message to Vuatella. Maybe they can get a Bowser standby. Yeah, no, so far nothing on Gary. So this is on the Kruger boundary. I've spoken to Craig from Cheetah Plains. He is up on the Kruger boundary. He says they have their water Bowsers ready on standby. That is big. I'm just looking. I mean, unbelievable how that mushroom has developed. It's almost like a cumulus cloud. How intense it is becoming up there. So there is a lot of water going into this fire that is creating the steam that is now condensing into that beautiful white mushroom that's building. But that also could mean that there are people fighting it. Craig does say that at the moment it is under control. It is on the Kruger boundary coming in from the Kruger Park. But I'm going to have to keep an eye on that. It's big. Anyway, we're going to carry on south. It's going to start clouding our western sky too, making things a little bit orange for the afternoon. And as destructive as a fire might be, it actually can produce some really incredible light. Oh, I'm caught up. It is a time of the year when there are fire breaks being created to prevent, well, not only to prevent fires from spreading, but to act as areas where fires can be fought from the front, where you can burn back to fight the fire. But a fire break doesn't create that. A fire break makes a little bit of smoke. Fire break doesn't produce cumulus clouds. That is a big fire. Start smelling it. We should start seeing bits of ash start falling out of the sky now too. Okay, go Nikki. Do we have a fire department? No. Hello, Sarah. How do we put out a big fire? We battle it, Sarah. It is a battle of note. And sometimes the best way to fight a fire, if it is a runaway fire, such as this might turn into, the best way would be to fight it with fire. Now, we've got a couple of fairly large roads, and there are some fire breaks already. I can see that they've started creating a fire break here. We're on Cheetah Cut Line, our eastern boundary. I don't know if you can notice it, but just here on the left of the road you can see the grass has been mowed a bit shorter, and what that can do is that can at least arrest the fire, can slow it down, it can suppress the flames somewhat if there isn't a wind, but it can also provide a place that if a fire was coming from the east and there was a strong enough wind that we couldn't fight it at the face of the fire, because you cannot get into this thick bush. Not even with a vehicle, when there is a bit of a wind, can you get ahead of a fire. You will be burnt to a crisp in seconds. So when there is a fire, sometimes the only way to deal with it is to be ahead of the fire. Like now, I can feel this wind coming straight from that fire. At the moment it's a cool wind, so we're not getting the heat of the fire yet. But if need be, where there is another road that runs parallel to the face of the fire, The idea would be to start a fire along that road and to burn back towards the fire, what we call a back burn, naturally. And so you have this really low flame that isn't producing a lot of heat, burning against the wind, and eventually it'll meet up with this wall of flame that's coming at above wind speed towards it, and the two hit each other. And I nearly lost my feather. And the two hit each other, and of course the fire puts out the fire. There are firefighting teams in the lodges. The lodges have what we call bowsers. Each lodge has a fire emergency program. The guys get ready. They get a water bowser, which is either a several hundred gallons on a trailer, pulled by a pickup, or it's a bowser that can actually fit on the back of a pickup. It's attached to a little, maybe 5 horsepower water pump that is able to pump a large stream of water. But when you have a fire like this, it's pure manpower. It's lodges. I've been in the Sabi Sand where even guests, where every single lodge, we just dropped everything in the middle of a game drive. We dropped traversing rights, we dropped all the political rules about who's allowed on which property. All of that went out the window, and everybody hit the face of that fire with gusto, because it was in the interest to save the Sabi Sand at that. I think I'm talking about something 25 years ago. It was in our interest to prevent the Sabi Sand from burning. That was a fire that came in from the rural area, from the west. This, on the other hand, coming in from the east, coming in probably off of a road in the Kruger. Some careless tourist or something. I don't know if this is purpose. We'll never know. Maybe impossible to do forensics on something like this.